We have been seeing a lot of presentations on the deployment of 5G, standardization of 5G, scheduling, time schedule, I mean, all these kind of things. From our viewpoint, coming from industry and being associated with the 5G IA and so on, what can you tell us about what we can expect for the actual deployment of 5G and the technology that will be available in the first years, let's put it this way, the couple years to come?
It's always interesting where you have these new technologies and these new generations, and it often starts off with a huge hype, promises and ideas and visions, and often this hype is before we've actually decided what that technology will even be. And 5G has been a classic example of that people have been promising 5G and it will change the world for many, many years. And in actual fact, I think it will change the world, but not in the next year or two. We are now at the stage where we have the first standard. So funnily enough, last week in California, we finalized the standalone version, which is the true pure 5G on the core and on the radio access network. So we now have a standard, but this is the first standard. And rather like going to school, in the first year of school, you don't necessarily learn everything, or you can't necessarily do everything. And it's the same with 5G, that it will be a development process. And the promise of 5G, the full promise of 5G, will actually take much longer than just a couple of years. So with that in mind, what we are seeing this year, we will see the first deployments of 5G. And those first deployments typically will not be taking place in Europe. They'll be taking place mainly in North America, in certain parts of Asia, like China. And we will also see deployments for the Olympics in Japan next year. And on the face of it, it looks perhaps that Europe is a little bit behindhand. And maybe in terms of deployment, you could argue that. But what one has to remember is what is being deployed. And if you deploy the very first version, the minimal set, well, yes, you can claim you've got 5G. And on your handset, you can have a 5G in the corner, and that's super, great marketing. But the promise of 5G, at least in our view, in the view of the 5G Infrastructure Association, the promise, or shall we say, the way of measuring 5G is, can we bring in the vertical industries? And by vertical industries, I mean things like automotive, smart cities, healthcare, media. Can we actually use 5G? Can we actually digitize the industry? And the current 5G standard does not support that. That will be in a future version. That's what we're developing. That's what we're working on the 5GPP projects, trying to prove that the technology can be used for these verticals. We're trying to show these vertical industries that this is the right way of going. And that will not happen overnight. So yes, probably it's more 2020 for broad deployment in Europe for 5G, but maybe that's not a disaster in so much as that is when maybe the full potential of 5G can be realized.
Okay, thank you very much.